So we're going to hear now, obviously we've just heard from Becky and her experience after having a nucleation. And we're really fortunate to now hear a talk from a couple of people at the National Artificial Eye Service. So we have a gentleman called Nigel. He'll be sort of explaining the service, and then we'll also be joined by one of the ladies in his team who has an incredible talent, obviously, for making these prosthetic eyes. So welcome, Nigel. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Good morning.
And to Andrea, thank you. Brilliant. If you're okay are you sharing slides, Nigel, or are we popping them up for you?
Yes, I am. Forgive me. We've just had a little bit of a technical glitch, so I'm not able to steer. So I need somebody to put the presentation on for me. Excellent.
Like magic.
Okay. Yes, good. Good morning, everybody. My name is Nigel Bennett. I'm the operational manager for the National Artificial Eye Service. And as Joe has said, we're also joined this morning by Andrea Rogerson. She's one of our senior prosthetists and she works out in Sheffield. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background to the service, just tell you a little bit on the history about how we've come to being and where we are now. And then perhaps the bit that you'll be more interested in, Andrea's going to have a quick talk through the pathway and then answer your questions. So if we could just move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so just to say, we are only a small service, but we do have a proud history that stems back over 100 years. This particular graphic, I don't expect you to be able to see the detail on screen, but I'm going to go through some little bits of it. But this graphic was done by one of our technicians, and it just maps out some of the key events in our history. So next slide, please. So we started back in 1916. We started as the Army Spectacle Depot, serving Army personnel and war pensioners only. So that's where we started. Next slide, please. And then during the war, we actually provided 15,000 artificial eyes for casualties of the Great War. And after that, in 1920, we were moved to the Ministry of War and Pensions, and typically we were renamed. At that time, we were the Optical Appliance Depot. So next slide, please. Just a key date here, back in 1944, Dr. Barker, who was a dentist from Lancaster, he produced an acrylic eye for his son. So Dr. Barker went on to be employed by the Ministry of War and Pensions and developed the process for manufacturing eyes on mass scale using acrylic. And of course, acrylic is still used today. So next slide, please. It's back in 1948 was the first year that the service actually saw NHS patients. So again, we were then moved again, this time to the civil service, and renamed for the first time the Artificial Eye Service. Next slide, please. It was then 42 years later that we actually came wholly adopted by the NHS. So in 1990, we were officially then part of the NHS. Next slide, please. Oh, you can see the centenary there, marking our 100 years in 2016. So next slide, please. Just a little point here, in 1990, we developed a hollow eye, which is for patients certainly to reduce the weight of the eye that's in the socket for certain special cases. Next slide, please. I did say it was a whistle-stop tour, and that was a whistle-stop tour, but I just wanted to give everyone a feel for where the service is coming. Like I say, that we are a very proud service. We've got a reputation for quality, and we've been going over 100 years, and a lot of our staff have got sort of 40 years experience, and they're very proud to work for the service. So it's a really nice service to work in. So just now we are trying to move with the times and rolling out some new initiatives. We've just currently got a colour accurate digital photography initiatives rolled out in 4 clinics. So that's going well. For those of you that are familiar with photography, you'll know that you can take very good and very detailed colour pictures, but taking a colour accurate photograph is a different thing, where you represent the colour in a different place and have the confidence that it's accurate of what you've taken. We've developed our own system. A couple of the technicians have developed it, and we've worked with a local manufacturing company to develop a lens and process for that. And we're very hopeful that we're going to have a very good colour accurate digital imaging process to work with in the future. We're also dipping our toe into the market of 3D printing. We have got a 3D printer, and we have got ambitions to look at how that can be used and incorporated in the manufacturing process. But just at this moment in time, we don't believe that the technology is fully there. There is some good technology out there, but it's not wholly right. But we're also looking at scanning as well, digital scanning, and the combination of digital scanning, 3D printing, and colour accurate digital photography that we're working on at the moment, that should set us up well for the future, and that's what we're hoping, and that's what we're working on now. With the colour accurate digital imaging initiative in the clinics being the one that's most advanced there, and that's already been rolled out to 4 clinics. We hope to roll that out to the remaining of the clinics early next year. Next slide, please. So we basically operate in 2 systems. So we have in our clinics throughout the country, I'll say a little bit about that in a moment. We have our orbital prosthetists who take the molds and do the colour matching and also look after our patients on an ongoing basis. But our main base is in Blackpool, and it's there where the eyes are manufactured. So our manufacturing process is quality assured and assessed by BSI. So we are ISO 9001:2015 accredited. We do get very good marks from our patient satisfaction for our eyes. So just to give you that, and just to brag a little bit, but for the manufactured eyes, our patients report 93% excellent and just 7% satisfactory, but no percent in the 2021 survey recorded unsatisfactory. And indeed, that's reflected also in our overall satisfaction levels for our service. Again, it was that was 93.6% excellent and 6.4% satisfactory. And again, none of the patients that responded said that our service was unsatisfactory. We're very proud of those figures. That doesn't mean we're standing still. We're constantly looking at the moment of new ways to improve it, our processes, but our eyes are regarded as being excellent, and they are regarded as being very lifelike. Next slide, please. So I mentioned a moment ago that our orbital prosthetists work at clinics throughout the country. So there you can see just a quick map showing that we work on a hub and spoke model, so that we have 17 main bases throughout the country, and 18 prosthetists service those 17 main bases. And they have a main base where they work from primarily, do the majority of their clinic visits, clinic appointments, but they also work in community clinics in that locality. And the full details of all those clinic locations are on our website, but hopefully that, there's clinics in relatively close travel distance to everybody throughout the country. Next slide, please. I just wanted to mention the special eyes. So in addition to obviously making a bespoke eye for our patients, we also do special design eyes. These are proving ever more popular. And we have everything from rainbow swirls, as you can see there, to football crests. There's, I think there's an army one on there, and a little goldfish on one. And we literally seem to get everything requested. And such is the talent of our artists. They can do really pretty much anything that our patients want, and more and more we're getting requests for those just now. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, that's me done. And I did say it was a whistle tops tour. Now, I'm just going to hand over to Andrea in a minute. I'll be staying on if anybody wants to ask any questions on the brief presentation I've done. But hopefully Andrea will be able to just give you a quick run through our pathways and an introduction to what she does in clinic. Andrea.
Andrea Rogerson, and yeah, I work for the National Artificial Eye Service, but I'm actually based at one of the ocular oncology clinics in Sheffield. It's one of the 4 bases. And the benefits of me being there in ocular oncology is I'm there on hand to help with any questions the patients in clinic on the day. I can liaise with the doctors and the nurses and any of the team that work alongside the ocular oncology patients. Obviously, you know, no one ever imagines that they're going to be in the situation where they're having to have an artificial eye, and we all understand what a very worrying and difficult time this is for lots of patients. So, you know, please don't be afraid to ask questions, even if you think it's a silly question, because we've heard them all before. And we hear this all the time from patients, you know, about the driving and bumping into things and, you know, picking up your glass and that sort of thing. We understand, and we've seen patients in that situation. Obviously, for most of you will probably be wearing an artificial eye, but for those who don't wear a prosthesis, I just thought I'd go through like a stage of what happens there. Most patients are seen 6 weeks post-op. Usually at that visit, we make a temporary eye, which is a pre-painted shell. And that one can stay in situ for about 6 to 8 weeks. Some people prefer these shell type eyes and like to stay with those, but most people move on to a moulded eye. So probably another 8 weeks after that, if everything's healing nicely, we take a mould of the socket and we make a bespoke eye. Now, more and more recently, we've had patients asking for novelty eyes, but like the ones Nigel showed you. So they can be requested at the same time. You do have to pay for those. I'm not quite sure, is it about £180 or something to have a second eye made at the same time if you're wanting that sort of eye made. It just seems to be becoming more and more popular at the moment, and some people wanting to show the world that they have been through this, and they want something like that bespoke to say, look what I've gone through, come out the other side, and you know, this is me, this is what I've done. Other people want to be a bit more discreet and have something that's like the other eye as near as possible. So usually you get your artificial eye, moulded eye, about 4 months post-op is about the average, but that can vary on, everybody heals differently at different times. Some people are still having treatment, so they can't get into clinic, but most people have their eye 4 to 6 months. I do a joint clinic monthly with the Ocular Plastics team. These are for the people who've had an artificial eye for a little while, and maybe the lids aren't quite right, or they've got a droopy eyelid, or problems with the socket. And at these appointments, we can assess the sockets alongside with the doctor and decide best treatment going forward. So, you know, you might need your bottom eyelid lifting or your top eyelid lifting, and this can be done alongside the process, knowing what's happening, so we can work alongside to make sure you get your eye at the right time. We review all our patients yearly or more often if necessary. Some people need to be seen 3 monthly or 6 monthly, but usually most patients come and have their eye checked and polished once a year. And we call all our patients yearly, but if you need to be seen sooner than that, we can see you sooner than that in one of our clinics. Obviously, we try and get you to be seen nearer to home, but if you do want to come back to the Sheffield clinic, we can try and coincide your appointment with the oncology and having your eye checked at the same time, if you prefer to do that. Really, it was more a case of questions. Does anybody have any questions that they feel they want to ask me whilst I'm here?
Thank you, Andrea and Nigel. That was really useful. And certainly we've started hearing as well that people are having, you know, different coloured eyes to be made up. Yeah, yeah, so I think it's lovely if people, I've seen like sparkles and different colours as well, you know, to their other eye.
Well, some people want to, you know, obviously majority of people want a matching eye. That's the norm. But I think, you know, with body art becoming more popular these days, and people being a bit more open about talking about what they've been through. I did have one lady that came to see an ocular oncology lady, and her best friend had gone through breast cancer treatment at the same time. And she decided she wasn't going to have her breast reconstruction. So a friend in ocular oncology decided she wasn't going to have an artificial eye. So I suggested to her, why don't you have something that shows what you've been through, if that's how you're feeling about it. Everybody's different. So she had a sparkly eye instead. And she wanted to tell, you know, she wanted people to ask her what's happened. And then obviously you've got the other people that want to be as near as possible. So nobody's the same, and we completely understand that. So we can go with what suits you best, and we've got that chance to do that. If you're wanting a novelty eye, if you're just only wanting a sparkly eye, you know, the NHS will pay for that eye. But if you're wanting a spare one, obviously we ask patients to pay for the second eye.
That's brilliant. And sometimes we hear from people actually that either they're told to remove the eye sort of on a regular basis and give it a clean, whereas other people seem to be told to keep it in and actually we'll clean it up when you next come to see us. Is there kind of ever one right approach, or does it depend?
No, there's not one approach fits all. So to be honest, the less you take it out, if you've had your eye removed, the better from a socket problem. So you're not stretching your eyelids, because obviously every time you take your eye in and out, you're stretching your eyelids. So the ocular plastics team I work with prefer to do as little as possible. So I've got some patients that don't take the eye out from 1 year to the next and have absolutely no problems. And then I've got other patients that really do struggle with discharge and maybe take it out once a month or once every 3 months or what have you. And then we've got some people that need it polishing more often than others. Majority once a year, but then we've got a few that need to come a little bit more often than that. So we don't have one size fits all. We are lucky that we can be quite flexible on how often you're seen. But majority it's about once a year.
And do people sort of tend to have like your contact details if they are having trouble with their prosthetic, not sure what to do or anything like that? Can they come back and sort of contact you for a sooner appointment or something?
Yeah, I always tell my patients, you know, I'll put you on a yearly recall, or if we decide in clinic that they need to be seen more often than that, we'll put them on a recall system. But I always say to everybody, and all my colleagues do as well, you know, if you need to see us soon or you need to speak to us, if you just ring up the head office, because we work in lots of different locations, so you can't always get us at wherever clinic you might see us at. So we get you to contact head office, and I mean, I quite often do a telephone call to a patient. If they just need a bit of reassurance, we can do that. Or if you need to be seen in clinic, we get you back in clinic as soon as we can.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you. Well, we've got a couple of messages actually. Well, actually, one's just a comment to say that they've actually had a really good experience with the prosthetics department at Moorfields. So that's brilliant to hear. And I know for us personally, actually, the person that my dad was doing my dad's prosthetic was actually the first person that he spoke to, you know, because it was just so soon after hearing that he'd have to have his eye removed. So I know he always felt well supported by her. So that was lovely. So thank you. Yeah, I mean, so and presumably actually when you're getting people through the service, it's not just that you make their eye, you know, it's I mean, thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky where I am in Sheffield. If we've got patients who haven't actually had their eye removed yet, and it's something that they're going to have done, sometimes the doctors give me a shout or the nurses give me a shout, and I can see the patient on the day that they've been told that they're going to have their eye removed, and maybe just give them a bit of reassurance. We do pre-op consultations in all our clinics. The thing with ocular melanoma, usually it happens quite quickly, the process, and so sometimes going to a different clinic isn't viable. But if you're in one of the main bases and there is a prosthetic there, we're always happy to talk to a patient on the day if we're there. and just give them a little bit of reassurance. Like I say, we can arrange pre-op consultations where we can discuss, you know, the journey with them at the time.
That's brilliant. And one of the questions from Carol is, do you ever have anybody that can't be fitted with a prosthetic?
Personally, I've never seen anybody that hasn't been able to be fitted with prosthetic. I have had patients who've had difficulties retaining a prosthetic eye.
Yeah.
You know, for one reason or another. But and you know, we've got teams of great cosmetic surgeons. So, you know, we all work quite closely along with the cosmetic surgeons and try and make something to fit, whether they need to have some surgery, maybe the prosthesis needs suturing in the socket for a little while, or they have surgery and then come back to us at a later date. We can usually make, we can get conformers that are painted. So if somebody's having surgery, they know they're going to have surgery, and they're one of our patients already, they're already with us, we can get one of those painted if they're going to have to be in something temporary long term.
Right.
So we can work around it usually. But as long as we know and we're kept in the loop with what's happening with surgery, we can usually work quite well with the surgeons and get them something that, you know, that's an eye in there.
And kind of what's the, I mean, yeah, sort of it. I've can't remember actually that period of time. But what's the main difference between like the conformer and the prosthetic eye? Is it just more that it's more temporary, or is it shaped differently?
Well, the patient normally comes to us wearing a conformer from surgery.
I've got right.
So they're usually clear, but like I think one of your other guests said, you
yeah.
have some that are painted, some people have some that are painted, and that just holds the lids for you in a keeps the socket open for you. And then in our service, we make a temporary eye. So usually 6 weeks post-op, we make them what's called a half sphere, and these are already pre-painted shells that we cut down to fit as a temporary measure. So you're not going a long time before you actually get an artificial eye. And then when everything's healed up and we're ready to mould, then we take the mould at a later date.
Okay, thank you. So for somebody who's having difficulty with their prosthetic eye, presumably just get back in contact with your team and see if there's something that can be done.
Yeah, I think sometimes what happens with, because obviously there's only the 4 oncology centres in the UK, sometimes we're not always, because we're a different service, we're not always kept in the loop about what's happening. You know, we're not always kept in the loop if someone's going for further surgery to the lids. Sometimes we're not always kept in that loop. So we don't know that you might be having more surgery, or, you know, it's good to get back in touch and let us know what's happening, or get your doctor to refer back and let us know what's happening. I mean, I don't normally have a problem with that because I'm in Sheffield, where most of my patients come from, so I normally get kept in the loop. But if you're going to see somebody in one of our different centres, just make sure that we're kept in the loop so we can see you in a timely manner. Because if we don't know something's happening, then we can't get you in, you know, as you might want. So it's good to be kept in the loop.
Brilliant. And then a question around customise. So having a custom eye done. I understand it's not something that's done at all of the centres. So are you asked to refer to a centre that does do customise?
No, I think, well, as far as our service is concerned, the National Artificial Eye Service, I don't know any centres that aren't doing them. Okay. I think you probably have to ask. You know, it's not something that we say at that first visit, we're going to make your moulded eye, and do you want a custom eye made as well? You know, usually, I mean, a lot of people come to us with a photograph on the phone of something that they like and say, can you do this? And then what we do is we will ring our lab manager and say, hey, is it possible to do this for a patient? I've not had a no yet, so I've not had anybody come to me and haven't been told that they can't have what they want. I think there's some things that you might have to ask permission to print, but most things, I've not really had a problem with that.
Brilliant. Oh, well, thanks so much for your time today. We'll talk to you both for telling us about the service. It's the first talk like this that we've had at any of our conferences, so just really appreciate you giving up the time to join us today. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.